lives and see how long I've been hearing that story. The coffee shop system, I guess first needs to be explained. Back in the mid-70s, there was a boom in marijuana use in the Netherlands, or actually more precisely of hashish use. Almost no marijuana, it was almost all smuggled hashish from Morocco and Lebanon and Turkey, and in those days from Nepal and Afghanistan. All of these places supplied hashish in various forms primarily to the European market. Eastern Canada was also a place where hashish was the more common form of cannabis, I believe in the French. In the Netherlands, they were, of course, started arresting young people for possession of marijuana, and the Netherlands is a small, very civilized country, and it didn't take them long to realize they didn't like arresting their kids. Fortunately, that idea never got to the United States. What good is a criminal justice system or if you can't arrest your kids? I mean, you're going to tell them there's no Santa Claus. Anyway, the Dutch stopped arresting people for possession of marijuana. Well, where's the marijuana going to come from? Where was it coming from? Well, it was coming from the street dealers. The street dealers who would also happily sell you cocaine or heroin or God knows what. The Dutch didn't like that either. So, which again in contrast to U.S. law enforcement. The Dutch think, what do we got to do? Well, in the meantime, a few Dutchmen took it upon themselves to address this problem. That Bernard Browning, a dear friend and a wonderful person, started what was really the first coffee shop, which was called the Mellow Yellow Tea Room. How different, if everybody said with tea instead of coffee, you would be talking about Amsterdam tea rooms. Might have different meanings in different circles. Another guy named Hank de Vries started the Bulldog, and that was an appropriate name place because de Vries had to really be a bulldog. He got busted every day. If he had been in the context of the American criminal justice system, no one other than a few wardens would know his name. Anyway, he persisted, and then there were others. I think Rusland, which is actually still there, was the third, and so on. The Mellow Yellow, by the way, that is still, or may not be still there, but it's not the original Mellow Yellow. It's simply too good a name to waste. Anyway, so the Dutch then started tolerating the coffee shop system. Before long, there were hundreds of coffee shops in Amsterdam. At one point, there were almost 700 or something like that. Now there's only about 250. But what the Dutch saw there was, the simple term is separation of the markets. That coffee shops can only sell cannabis. If this has happened occasionally, that an employee of a coffee shop would think he'd make a few extra bucks by selling cocaine or something else under the counter. The Dutch authorities' response to that is simply to shut down the coffee shop, period. You didn't know what your employee was doing? That's really too bad. You should have. Goodbye. The coffee shop license, as it evolved, is worth a whole lot of money. So this is a really serious thing. Second chances on a lot of things, but selling hard drugs in a coffee shop is, a close, period. Over the years, the Dutch have tolerated the coffee shops, eventually started taxing them. A separate long story. This coffee shop system is not just Amsterdam, by the way. If you talk to a prohibitionist, well, the coffee shops are all in the red light district, and whatever. No, there's just in Amsterdam, and we all know about Amsterdam. The fact is that virtually every city of any size in the Netherlands has at least one coffee shop. And there are a few cases where the city in questions have gone, encouraged somebody to open up a coffee shop because you don't want kids going to the big city. So you can get cannabis locally in almost any place. And this is considered to be a social good, not a problem. This is the way the system works. But there is one thing that we haven't talked about here, and it gets really complicated, but it is, where does this cannabis come from? The Dutch are very practical, so that they believe in magic when it is practical to do so. Technically, that a coffee shop is only supposed to have a pound or half a kilo of cannabis in all of its form. Well, some of the big coffee shops will do that in a matter of less than an hour. I mean, the turnover, if you go to some of the popular coffee shops, and to be able to just operate off of a 1 pound inventory thing, even if you only had one variety and never mind having 20. The Dutch call this the backdoor problem, de achterdeur. And the problem of where does this cannabis come from? Well, it used to all be smuggled in when it was starting, but then, believe it or not, Americans, I'm so proud, brought Sensimilla to the Netherlands. So that the Dutch in the early 90s, late 80s, market began to shift. Imported hashish to what they called Nederwiet, cannabis grown in the Netherlands. The quality of locally grown weed, wheat, was really good, and it got better and better. But as time went by and this shifted, the idea of cultivating cannabis in the Netherlands became both more necessary and more of a problem because it's all was and still is illegal.